Hello, and welcome to the 2024 February DAC training on high school. My name is Kristen Roseberry. I'm a program consultant in the Office of Assessment and Accountability. This training is one in a series meant to prepare DACs and BACs for the upcoming spring state test administration. As a result of overwhelmingly positive feedback on the recorded trainings, OAA is continuing to provide pre-recorded trainings in advance of scheduled question and answer sessions. Today we will talk about ACT administration information, ACT resources, accountability, SDRR, and post-secondary readiness, as well as some information about our February DAC question and answer sessions and contact information. First, let's discuss some information about the ACT administration. The 2024 spring ACT state administration dates have been established by ACT and OAA. Within the provided table, the terms ACT Online Standard and ACT Authorized Accommodations Testing Window denotes the periods designated for the online test administration. These timeframes encompass the available dates for conducting the ACT online. It's important to note that online testing is now 9 days. Therefore, online testing will now include Mondays and Fridays. All testing activities during the spring season will be conducted online. All spring testing will be online with a few exceptions, including accommodations that have no online equivalent. An essential point to consider is that if a school or district encounters challenges conducting online tests due to internet disruptions or adverse weather conditions, they should reach out to Kristen Roseberry for alternate arrangements. For the ACT Authorized Accommodation Testing Window, it's crucial to observe the prescribed dates for paper testing. Test coordinators are responsible for assessing students using paper accommodated materials within this specific testing window. As a friendly reminder, all testing endeavors for the spring season will be conducted online. Here are the dates for Test Window 2. Please note ACT and OAA have worked to secure an emergency Test Window 3. OAA will work with districts should a statewide emergency arise. KDE anticipates that Test Window 1 will serve as the initial test window, while Test Window 2 is the makeup window for potential retest. For effective test administration, schools will establish test sessions for Window 1 from February 5th to March 22nd. Create test sessions for Window 2 is from March 22nd to April 5th. Here are the two setup options. Option 1, testing in Window 1 and Window 2. Test Window 1 and Test Window 2 can be strategically employed. To implement this approach, designate Test Window 1 as the initial test date in the PAN system during Select Test Dates task. This flexibility allows schools to use Test Window 1 for both the initial testing phase and any needed makeup sessions. Additionally, Test Window 2 is available for the completion of any pending makeup or testing requirements. Option 2, testing in the initial Test Window 1 only. Under this option, schools will conduct all testing, including initial and makeup sessions, exclusively within the initial Test Window 1. As a result, Test Window 2 would not be utilized. Schools retain the flexibility to switch to Test Window 2 if their testing plans evolve. These options provide schools with adaptable frameworks to effectively manage their testing schedules while also accommodating potential changes in their testing strategies. Contained within the spring 2024 ACT schedule of events are comprehensive outlines of tasks to be accomplished during each testing window throughout the administration cycle. It's important to note that the specific tasks will differ based on whether the administration type being managed is online or accommodations needing paper-based materials. Qualified to the deadline window. For Test Window 1, this opened on January 22nd and runs through March the 8th. For Test Window 2, it opens on March the 12th and runs through March 15th. What qualifies? A student that is new to the school, a change in grade level, new diagnosis, newly identified as needing EL supports, or a sudden onset of a medical condition. This is not an extension to your request deadline, but for events that occur after the deadline. For the spring 2024 ACT State Administration, ACT is offering a staggered start time known as the late start policy. This option will be available for paper testing, online testing, and accommodation testing. Districts may offer multiple test sessions within a test day, so long as the rules about late start time, which are outlined in ACT Administration Manual, are followed. The staggered sessions should be structured to avoid overlapping breaks, and the last session must start by 10:30 a.m. In addition, if a staggered start time is used, testing staff must ensure that examinees from different rooms do not have the ability to interact with each other during any breaks. If any school utilizes the staggered start times, an irregularity report must be completed. Let's take a look at an example of a staggered start time testing schedule. The My ACT sessions cannot be completed on the day of testing. Therefore, the non-test sessions will have to be scheduled prior to the testing day. This policy is limited to multiple overlapping sessions only. For example, Group A could not start and finish prior to Group D starting. Most importantly, please ensure that student groups do not have the opportunity to mingle or pass in the hall during any staggered testing schedule. These are some examples of staggered times that could be used. However, a smaller school with only 2 groups could, for example, utilize Group B and Group D for a testing schedule. With each ACT administration, all Kentucky DACs are responsible for recording students in their districts who are under 18 years of age and do not have parental consent to opt into ACT's EOS or select score recipients. This will be done by choosing a response to a state use question in Pearson Access Next. Parental consent must be obtained for each administration that does not transfer over from any administration, including this past spring or more recent fall administration. The non-test activity for examinees is completed on the MyACT website, regardless of test mode, paper or online. Students with consent can complete the non-test activities from their homes. However, it is the expectation of KDE that at least one support session will be held for students with consent prior to testing. If unforeseen circumstances prevent a student from completing the non-test activities before testing, it can be completed on an emergency basis only in the 2 days after testing. The day of testing should never be utilized for a MyACT support session. Separately, testing staff will need to hold a support session for students without consent for the non-test instructions form. Students without consent should be guided through the non-test portion of the test at school. If the school guides all students to the non-test portion of the test, KDE recommends that students under 18 years of age without consent complete the non-test portion of the exam at a different time or location than students who have consent. Separating these two cohorts will help the test administrators confirm that the students are not completing the specific sections of the non-test activity, which impacts EOS opt-in and score reports provided to third parties. Students without consent should be instructed to skip questions related to opting into the ACT EOS and requesting score reports to be sent to colleges or scholarship agencies. As a reminder, on the parental consent form and policy, whether a student has consent to opt into EOS or not, the student is still required to test. Do your best to collect consent from each student. Consent can be electronic or written. Hold 2 separate support sessions for students with consent and students without consent. Whether the consent is electronic or written, document thoroughly. Update PAN with students who do not have consent. And please note that verbal consent is no longer accepted. Now let's look at some ACT resources. Here are some ACT resources with links for the MyACT, the Success Site, ACT PAN, TestNav, Support, and the Kentucky ACT site. Also available to you for a resource is the ACT College Administration Guidance and FAQ document for the Spring 2024 Junior Administration. The link for the document is included on the slide. It is recommended that this document is downloaded with each test administration. I would also like to add that KDE is going through the request for proposal process for the college admissions examination for post-secondary readiness. All state agency contracts are limited to the time allotted to each vendor. The current vendor contract ends this year. Now let's discuss accountability, post-secondary readiness, and SDRR. The ACT is one option for students to demonstrate academic readiness in the post-secondary readiness indicator. Schools may use scores from any ACT administration, national or state, to demonstrate academic readiness in the post-secondary readiness indicator. Senate Bill 159 in 2022 requires that post-secondary readiness for each high school student be measured by one benchmark. Therefore, a student meeting or exceeding a college readiness benchmark score on the college admissions examination or college placement examination approved by the Council on Post-Secondary Education would have met the indicator. Beginning in the fall of 2022, OIA began to accept AccuPlacer and EdReady assessments for the post-secondary readiness indicator. However, as a reminder, OIA only receives scores from the ACT and Coyote exams. If a school uses the SAT, GED, College Readiness, AccuPlacer, EdReady, Diagnostic, or the ALEX exam, the school will need to ensure OIA receives the scores. When students receive their ACT reports, they will contain ACT benchmarks. For accountability purposes, KDE will use the benchmarks established by the Council on Post-Secondary Education. For example, if a student receives a 21 in reading, the student did not meet the benchmark for ACT, yet the student did meet the KDE accountability benchmark. Now let's talk about SDRR and non-participation. All students must participate in the state-required testing. Senate Bill 1 in 2017 mandates that grade 11 students must take the college admissions exam. The exception is a student who scored a 36 on a previous ACT exam. Kentucky law does not allow for students to opt out of state-required testing. Given that ACT is one of the many assessments students can use to demonstrate post-secondary readiness, OAA has removed the task of collecting non-participation for ACT rosters and SDRR. ACT will continue to be included in SDRR as part of the post-secondary readiness indicator in grade 12 and or upon graduation in spring rosters and fall data review. Please note any student at the district or school level that does not test, and please keep documentation at the local level. The documentation could be requested during monitoring visits. It would be rare for a student not to test due to flexibility during the testing windows. Just to reiterate, it is the expectation that all juniors and early graduate students test. As a reminder, early graduate students only test once. Now here's some information about our February DAC question and answer sessions and contact information. We will have 3 question and answer sessions on February the 5th, February the 15th, and February the 21st. The February DAC question and answer sessions will follow the same topics and time frame at each location. The agenda and times on the slide will be followed. However, once an agenda item has no additional questions, staff will move on to the next topic. Participants planning to attend should plan to attend for the entire meeting. Since the live question and answer sessions will not include full presentations of content already covered in the video recordings, DACs and BACs should be prepared for the question and answer sessions. DACs and BACs can prepare for those question and answer sessions by watching all training videos on the administration of Spring 2024 assessments. This concludes the February DAC training on high school. We look forward to seeing you at our question and answer sessions. Thank you for your time.